My name's Tom Dixon, I'm based in London and I'm a designer. I've been working with Vitra, the international bathroom manufacturer, on a whole set of equipment for the bathroom, which is called Liquid.
The collaboration with Tom Dixon started very naturally. Initially, Tom was looking for a manufacturer for some of his ideas, but when we talked deeper, we decided together, why don't we make a new bathroom collection? And on that basis, we started again.
The inspirations were really from Victorian roll-top baths and fonts in churches, things which were visibly long-lasting. I think what I'm trying to get to is almost an expressive minimalism, where what you're trying to do is have a very visible functionality and reduce visual noise. If they've got a personality and if they feel a bit like a comic book representation of the artifact, I think that's probably a good thing. There's something fun about a soft, fat edge. I am a designer of sorts. I started making things pretty much for pleasure. People started buying them. And at one point, people started calling me a designer. So, you know, the kind of career twists and turns I've had have given me a very different perspective to other designers. Like everybody at that time, everybody was in a band, so it wasn't an unusual thing, but we did end up being quite popular in London, signing a record contract, going on tour. I'd started welding live on stage, performance art kind of piece. I then subsequently broke my arm in a motorbike crash and couldn't go on tour. But by that time, I'd already started making things. So there was a kind of seamless transition, if you like, but precipitated by an accident. So, you know, I do like to say I'm a totally accidental designer, but literally. So this is always quite a good example of, you know, what happened next, really, which is that actually, rather than using the scrap metal, I was just making the chair out of the welding rod. So somewhere between a visit to the Science Museum and seeing models of bridges and the primitive early computer programs that were triangulating objects, the idea for this chair came. I was trying to make the lightest chair in the world in metal. I think it's a very exciting world at the moment, which is in full evolution. And the problem for us is probably keeping up with all of the potential that's out there right now. Every designer takes inspiration from nature. You know, it doesn't matter if it's the shape of the clouds or the wearing away of rock by water. I mean, there's lots of processes, and I think, you know, what's interesting now as well is things like biomimicry in design, which is starting to become a really interesting field in itself, which will ally science and new manufacturing methods and design all in one. In the Bahamas, I've got a project going where I've got an underwater factory, which has a set of 12 chairs and 2 tables that are being grown in effectively man-made coral. A 70s scientist had discovered a way of making what he calls biorock, which is a naturally occurring concrete that you can grow on a metal structure if you charge it with a small amount of electrical current underwater. I think the whole potential of the industry is completely turned upside down now. The things that were really difficult for me to do when I started off doing serial production or even manufacturing myself are now so much closer to young designer or the startup designer. So what's going on at the moment is the quite high-tech industrialized techniques are now within grasp of people with a laptop, just like what has happened in the music industry in the last 10 years, is that you can now record an album on your laptop. I think that in the design industry, we're going to find the same thing happening, is that from your bedroom, you can create a whole world of producible furniture, which can be made in small, medium or large quantities and flexibly made quite close to home. So this was inconceivable when I started. Technology has become a huge enabler to give more power back to the designer. A lot of the processes that used to be massively industrial, requiring large machines, have now become miniaturized and digitalized. So it becomes easier and easier for you to prototype things and to test out ideas. Yeah, so it's been transformational. The joy of just creating something that can happen with your hands, or it could be inspired by a tool that you might have just bought, or a visit to a factory. If you can make something simple that people haven't seen before, then you've won, you know, and it's the hardest thing to do. There's a lot of superfluous, and it gets harder and harder to do something which is reduced and still interesting, right? So you have to balance the temptation to add the bells and whistles with trying to produce something which is significantly different to what's out there and still maintain a kind of purity and a functionality about it. I think it's very dangerous to think the computer can do everything. And I think the digital toolkit, though, has become more and more interesting. You know, for now, the free tools that are around, like SketchUp, are kind of interesting as well, which give access to lots of people and put buildings into a global real world of Google Maps, for instance. Before, I'm more interested in the connection between design tools and the engineering tools now. So previously, there was no real common language between the tools of engineers and factories and the tools of designers, and so those worlds were completely apart. What's happening now is that the same files can be translated from something which is just a concept into something which is real, really automatically, without hours and hours of labour transforming the files. So ideas can be prototyped ever could before, and physicalised in a way that they couldn't before. And that's the exciting part. I don't think it's a specific software or a specific tool. It's lots of little sub-tools which make processes a lot easier than they were before. I wanted an object which kind of combined my everyday world of product, furniture, lighting design with a completely different bathroom world. And the stool seemed to be the kind of overlapping item.
It's an iconic design, but also it gives the option to sit comfortable in the bathroom.
In the tap world, you're able to do these super high-tech finishes called PVD. We tested out a few things, the obvious golds and coppers, but the black works quite well as a monster contrast.
London is a significant location for Vitra. We have been working in the UK market for the last 25 years, and we were waiting for the right time to launch this showroom. It's a space for events, it's a space for collaboration, it's a space for co-creation and working together.
The speed at which people get bored of things is quite dangerous in our sector. Luckily, I'm somebody that gets bored very quickly, so the digital world suits me very well. But I think is people's attention spans, and I think also for a young designer starting out, the difficulty is having enough time to be anonymous. I think for a lot of people starting out now that have had one great idea, that idea belongs to everybody very quickly now. Often it belongs to everybody before that person has had an opportunity to output it in a commercial way. It might just be a rendering, this great idea, and then suddenly it belongs to everybody that's got a computer. So I benefited from a non-digital era where I could be, broadly speaking, anonymous for maybe 5 or 10 years with only very few people knowing what I was doing, allowing me to create my own uniqueness and my own personality anonymously. And I think not having that as an opportunity for a lot of people is quite destructive, because it's very hard to have many original ideas and keep them private enough to actually develop a style of your own.